Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I say this every time. I'm so excited to talk to my guest, but today this really has my interest peaked because we are going to be talking about AI and Chat GPT. And, this is one of those things that I cannot wait to talk with my guest about. So please join me in welcoming Jake Dunlap to our program. Welcome, Jake. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be back. A third time.
I know. Third time is it the charm? I'm not sure.
We'll have to see afterwards, right?
This is true. This is true. So let me tell people a little bit about you, then we'll jump into this. So Jake Dunlap is the industry-leading CEO in innovative sales and revenue trends. As CEO of Skaled Consulting, he has worked with thousands of top revenue leaders and teams globally, such as those little companies like Microsoft, Splunk, the NFL, and the NBA, to modernize their sales organizations, driving hundreds of millions of dollars in new revenue. And as I mentioned, this is Jake's third time to be on the program. We talked to him in 2021, 2022, and now 2023. I think we just need to make this an annual get together.
There we go. Yeah, we'll see how this goes, right?
It'll be fabulous, right? Next time it might be all AI, though. Who knows? Who knows? So, tell us, I always like to ask my guests, even those who've been on several times, how did you get to where you are today? Because I think people are always very interested in that.
Sure. Well, it's been a journey, like anyone. For me, my background, grew up in the Midwest, went to college there in Missouri, and wanted to be in professional sports, wanted to work in professional sports. Mm-hmm. Obviously, at some point in my life, I wanted to play professional sports, but that was out of the cards after a certain point. Did sales there for a long time, got a chance to move into technology in the late 2000s and, really cut my teeth in technology sales and sales leadership. After being the vice president of sales at a few different startups, Glassdoor and Chartbeat, decided to make the move 10 years ago now to start my own firm, and really just saw a need in the market for sales. I saw marketing had all these different support organizations around PR, web design, performance marketing, and sales has always been, we'll hire full-time, or, we need a certain expertise, and saw there's really a need for support services for sales organizations. So, that's been the journey, and the summarizing 10 years in 4 seconds. But, today, really what we're focused on is helping organizations solve revenue process and operations challenges. And we've got a mix of very talented, strategic, and also very tactical, get things done individuals on the team to help people solve revenue challenges. So that's a very quick history.
I love it. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about AI and Chat GPT. And, I have a Chat GPT account. I use it, but I don't even scratch the surface with what it can do, which is what is absolutely fascinating to me. One of the things that I have used it for is to write my blog posts, to write letters, emails, draft brochures, things like that. But clearly, not anything near what it could do. Yeah. And, and I know people, excuse me, there are issues, with some of it. And those are, certainly we don't want to downplay any of those. But to me, it's like hiring a person to write that for me, right? Hey, I'm going to hire you to write the draft of my blog post. And then what I do is I put my personal touch on it. And that's kind of what I see with all of this is it does the draft, and then we put our personal touch to it. And so you have really started using it as part of the sales process. And what I love about this is the fact that, when we say sales, everybody makes the face, right? Ew, I don't want to do sales. I don't want to be in sales. And of course, every business person is in sales. Get over it, folks. I say that every time. You are in sales or your company is going to go under. Even if you have a sales team, all these things, you have to be in sales no matter what. And so I love that you are really starting to use it as part of, you're starting to use AI and specifically Chat GPT as part of that sales process. So talk to us more about this. Why did you even think, hey, let's see if this will work?
Well, I mean, I think once you started to use some of the applications, I think a lot of people start out like you, Deb, where it's like, hey, it can be, kind of one of the primary, I think, initial use cases is like thought starter, project starter. Either I've done this before, I haven't done this before. And it can kind of get me to a decent version one potentially, right? And I think the first applications I saw were, very similar around called email copywriting, where, hey, I'm trying to get a meeting with a CFO. Here's what my product does. Help me to write a compelling email or help me to write, a value-based messaging. So I think that's a lot of people's first interaction with it is this idea of like, I need to start something. And we call it kind of like the brainstorm ideation.
Right. It gets rid of that white paper syndrome, right?
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. And that's what it's so, I mean, it's just amazing at that. So what you start to realize is as you and I, basically myself and another sales leader who I respect, we met up here in Austin. We're here having pizza and a beer, and we're talking about this. And he's starting to talk about how he's thinking about some of these applications. This is probably 6 months ago now, maybe a little longer. And it really just started to get me to think of like what's going to be possible. And so we started to talk about, and I'll talk through some of the, kind of more tactical and practical applications too. It's just, we tend to think that the knowledge that we've amassed over time is proprietary. That because I've been a sales leader for 20 plus years, of course, all of my knowledge is, proprietary and nobody, like it's impossible. Well, I'll tell you what, after we did that, I started to think about it. And I started to say, well, what if I asked it like I would a sales leader? Like, hey, I'm stuck in a deal. Here's the situation. I'm meeting with this person. What are 2 different value props I could potentially use to re-engage this person? Take it a step further, skill development. Hey, I have a rep. They're not doing so well at getting meetings with senior level executives. And I need to put together a plan for their professional development to have more executive conversations. Help me to write an 8-week training program that's 30 minutes each with an agenda that will help a rep who's at a 2 skill level out of 10 get better at having conversations with executives in this industry. It can do all of that,
right? Which is amazing. And I have to admit, I like watching it type. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible that it can get that detailed and that specific.
Yeah, I mean, and think about, and so I'll kind of break it down. We've got kind of 9 areas where we kind of see it, and I'll talk about one, and we can stop and do some follow up. The first is around pipeline generation. There's kind of there's 2 areas there. One, messaging I talked about, right? Hey, this is the persona that I sell to. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. Help me to write messaging, etc. It can definitely help to, like you said with your blog post, it can get you there a big chunk of the way, or at least give you some ideas on where to start. So messaging is one. Preparation and research. This is where it is amazing. And so for those of you who don't know, ChatGPT isn't natively enabled to the web. It will be. I mean, not by the time this airs, but probably the next 3 to 6 months. Bing and some of the other ones, it searches the web. But there are API plugins like Web Pilot and others where I can literally feed it someone's investor relations page. I say, look at this investor relations page. I sell a product that does ABC based on their last 25 press releases. Pull out the top 3 or 4 themes that could be relevant to digital marketing. Boom, real time.
Right.
Read their last annual report. Summarize anything that could be applicable to this. Done. 25 seconds. So you're talking about a super hyper, and again, I can do the same with your LinkedIn profile. I can do the same with like other data that I might have to summarize, things that used to take us hours of data and research into a very succinct, packageable format that I can then use, to try to generate a meeting or in preparation for a meeting that I have coming up. But, the pipeline generation, and again, the ability to do this really advanced research and aggregation and ideation is really just such a massive opportunity for so many.
Right. And I was watching a couple of videos on your website, which is scaled.com, SKALED.com. And what struck me was that in essence, you are having a conversation with Chat GPT. And I'd never really thought of it that way. And I know that there are prompts, and we'll talk about, all of that, but you really are just, basically saying, tell me about, here's this, find that, and going from there. And I think that is clearly one of the things that people need help with, because we're thinking, no, this is a computer, we can't. And you can actually just have a conversation with it.
Yeah, I mean, it goes. Yeah, and it goes. I mean, you can continue to just kind of go down from where this plays out. So, like, think about role playing. And we call this kind of skill development and the applications for leaders and some of the things they can do to better work with their teams. And maybe it's yourself. Maybe, again, like you said, maybe you're a person who's like, I'm not very good at sales, etc. You can basically, again, you talked about this, talk to it like, from an impersonation standpoint. Okay. I've got a meeting coming up with this type of job title. This is their concern. This is what I think their concerns are. This is what they're doing. Or maybe it's a later stage meeting. I've already met with this person. I have a second meeting coming up. I'm concerned that they're concerned about A, B, and C. I want you to role play this meeting with me. Okay. You be the CFO, and I want you to be a difficult CFO. And I want you to push back on hot buttons that exist in industrial manufacturing today.
So you're telling Chat GPT all of this?
I tell it all of it. Exactly. I prompt it to be the exact persona, the exact person, the exact scenario that I want to, role play with, and it will role play with me. It will tell me, great. It will do that. And so when you think about closing more deals, and, we talk about there's kind of, the first two are messaging and pipeline generation. There's kind of three in the middle funnel of complex deal navigation, problem to solution framing, and follow-up. But there's different prompt strategies like role playing that can help you to really think through these scenarios. Like, okay, it's actually, they might actually care more about this than that. So I want you to, we call it the anti-prompt, which is like, tell me why this is going to fail. Tell me why, that's another one, scenario planning is another prompt strategy. Tell me why they would poke holes based on these 5 things. So those applications in terms of the sales process, to be able to really think through complex deals where, again, it used to, I'd have to go sit down with a sales manager, or maybe for some of you who aren't, sales gurus or experts, like, maybe you've never closed multiple 6-figure, 7-figure deals. Great. Scenario plan with Chat GPT. Talk through what might go right. Talk through what might go wrong. There's some really, kind of amazing applications whenever, again, you start to just understand, the limits of what is possible. And I'll get, it's obviously quite a bit more, but those are some of the middle funnel ones that I think a lot of people don't, again, just even realize what's possible.
Right. And the prompts are the questions. That's what you're asking it to do. And I was fascinated, like I mentioned, one of the things is I use it to write blog posts. And so it goes boogity, 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 and I could even tell it how long or anything like that. But then I could go, okay, I like that, but rewrite it with a sense of humor. And it will redo that and make it, a little tongue in cheek or something. And if it goes overboard, you can say, dial it back a bit. To me, that's just fascinating that it has that capability. And then let's be honest, it is a little scary. And I think that's what people are a little afraid of, is that it's going to take over everybody's jobs. But as we mentioned, we still need all of that personal touch that is in there. But yeah, it's just fascinating. Or, we were talking before the program about C-suite founder, Jeffrey Hazlett, and he has so much work that is out there, and we were talking, I was talking with him about this. And so they will say, write it in the style of Jeffrey Hazlett. And, and it will write a blog post or whatever it is that you've asked it to, and it kind of has his mannerisms.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, I think a lot of the, these are like the step one use cases, right? The step one use cases are these like content creation or any really project that you have. Let's say, again, you're trying to create maybe again, you want to get I almost think of it too, like, let's say if even it's something you've done, maybe you want to get an extra set of eyes on it. You know,
Right.
maybe you want to say, hey, look, I'm designing a comp plan for so-and-so. So I would think of prompting. There's a couple of things just to do it. It's like, it's the questions you ask, but it's also the commands that you give it
Okay.
to tell it how to behave.
Okay.
And those two things are actually the most important things that go into this, that just like a Google search, the quality of what you put in the search determines the quality of, you know, the outcome of the search.
Right.
And so I think for a lot of people, it's understanding you can tell it, and I'll kind of take it a step further just to explain so people understand too. Each thread, so each new chat in ChatGPT is like its own brain.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that, and I'll kind of preface after this, each one is independent. So just because you told one, like, you're a customer success rep, the next prompt will not know that.
Right.
So
it doesn't go and read what you've already done
until now. And so there is now, with you have the paid version of ChatGPT, which all of you should. There is a way, whenever you kind of go down to your settings in the bottom left, you click on like the triple dots, and it says customize. It says customize. And what you can start to do is tell it every single time you think through this lens. So what we're doing with our clients is, okay, great. Each, you know, sales rep or sales leader is going to just have their own specific work login. That work login is, you know, just for, you know, work sales related topics. And then I can actually pre-program all your personas. I could pre-program additional insights into what your products do. So then it already knows it. It already knows who you sell to, what your products are. And there's obviously a lot of ways you can take it, but that's, you know, that ability to create these kind of custom instances is really what that's part of what, and I'll talk later about, you know, the next things, but that's really the next iteration of this, is to make it without having to tell it in the prompt every single time to command it, you're going to do this. Instead, being able to program it at a, you know, universal level for that login. So that's going to be a pretty big leap forward for, you know, a lot of people.
Well, aside from anything else, it just saves time. You know, you're not having to go in every time and say, this is a CEO of a, you know, X number of company in this industry and all that. I mean, it's already there.
Yeah, exactly. You could say, yeah, you are a bot that helps to train salespeople on this, you know, persona or whatever it is. I mean, the applications are quite remarkable. Another one of my favorite ones is it's kind of a variation of role playing, which is trivia. You know, if I've got a new salesperson, etc., you know, sometimes what ChatGPT does by most cases, it gives you the answer, right? It tells you what it is. Well, we all know from learning, you know, it's better whenever we kind of stumble through it or have to work through it. You can have ChatGPT do the same thing. Hey, you know, I'll talk about some more fun applications. I sell into this. Here's what we do. This is the buyer that I sell into. I want to make sure I can get more meetings. I want you to create a 10-question trivia game that will help me to write better emails and phone calls to this persona to book more meetings. After you answer the first question and give me details, ask the second question. And it will just play trivia with you.
So give us some examples.
Yeah. So, the Kansas City Chiefs trivia is my favorite one. I'm like, hey, you are a Kansas City Chiefs trivia bot who is only going to ask me questions about the Kansas City Chiefs from 2005 to 2012. I want you to, you know, tee up 10 questions. And then after my answer, give me the next question. Like, you can do that with any application. So again, if I wanted to train someone to get better at something, instead of just saying role play with the persona, I could again say, create this trivia game. And it would say, great. CEOs of, you know, this e-commerce care most about this today, A, B, C, D. It will create multiple choice without you telling it to. B, actually the answer is C. Here's why. Okay, next question. So again, if you want to get better at a topic, you want to get better at selling, you want it to create a sales excellence trivia game, you can turn a single thread of ChatGPT in real time into a trivia game that will help you to learn a skill set. And again, this is just one prompt strategy. It's one that, you know, we find people enjoy because, you know, they're learning, but they're also, you know, having a little bit of fun. And again, depending on the data you're asking it, it can be 80 to 90% accurate. And that's fine. You know, it's 80 to 90%.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing people need to remember. It's, you know, it's not 100%. And as we know right now, it only goes up to about 2021 with some of its data. So if you asked it about Patrick Mahomes, it could go, who? Or it might give you his college
I mean,
information.
he had a Super Bowl by then. But no, you can, again, the key is for all of you who are kind of are new to this and you're listening, is what all of you should do is you go to OpenAI and you go to your account and then you request a developer account. That'll take like 24 to 48 hours. And when you get a developer account, then you can start to leverage the APIs that they have. So they have APIs to this like web pilot. And then that immediately takes it to the next level because it can search the web.
Right.
So it allows ChatGPT to search the web, right? Or it searches the web for
right. So then it's current.
Exactly. And there's so many of these applications. Again, any work stream you have, and I'll just kind of, again, like, I feel like a lot of understanding generative AI is just continuing to open your mind to what's possible. Zapier is a very common workflow tool. There is ways now where I can type, if you have a Zapier account, I can, instead of having to know how to like say, I want to, when I close one a deal in Salesforce, send an automatic email. Well, if you have Zapier installed, we're getting to the point where I can just use natural language and just build it and say, Zapier, I want you to build every time a deal assuming that it's all connected to Zapier in the backend and you've got your Zapier login, I want you to build an email that goes out to just the primary contact after every time I close one a deal. And you don't have to have any technical skills. None. I mean, this is where we're going, right? Code Interpreter is another OpenAI product. It will just write the code. You don't need to tell it.
Somebody else has done that smart stuff.
They've already done it. Like, and that's where, again, when you talked before about people losing their jobs, like the key is just, it's the people that understand how to utilize these tools. And you can sit there and toil away and your code might be better, but if I can get there 80 to 90%, and I'm there in 2 weeks,
right?
I'm going to win. And that's the key here is that, these tools, you cannot ignore these tools, right? If you're getting ready to retire, maybe, I don't know. But if you are not, if you've got 5 to 10 years left in the workforce and you're a white collar worker and a knowledge worker, you got to know these tools. It's just, it is going to be required.
Right. Well, and just think if you're, part of a sales team and, and you're the expert in it. Well, then, holy schmoly, you just got yourself in a much better position.
Just, I mean, if you're not your teams, I mean, we just did a poll on LinkedIn. What was it last week? Maybe it's 2 weeks ago now. We had 600 something people, and 30% of salespeople said they're using it every day. Another 31% said they're using it at least once a month or once a week. So you've got 70% of sellers who are already, dabbling with it. Because again, like the messaging one is the most clear use case, but then once you start to peel back the onion on like, okay, hey, you know what? I want to get promoted faster. Okay, well, I can turn these threads of ChatGPT into personal trainers where it's like I can have captive within this bot a CEO. I can have captive a CFO, and I can just drill with them what used to take me 100 sales meetings to run. I can do that in a week. And so the opportunity for skill development and skill training with ChatGPT is, again, it's just another tremendous use case for it, whether, you're a leader and you're looking to help your team get better, or, you're an individual who wants to, up their own skills. But that training ability, both from sales and other aspects, is just, there's nothing like it. There's nothing that can go that fast and is this good and this accurate. That will allow people to build skills much, much, much faster.
Right. I don't know why this just popped into my head, but, I was thinking that, when I work with people who are in the job market, I tell them, you are in essence selling yourself. The product is you. And so, I can just imagine, you've got an interview with company XYZ and you use ChatGPT to basically practice having an interview with them.
Easy.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah. You could feed it the link. I mean, again, if you've got a web enabled version, or you can copy and paste, you could copy and paste in the products they sell. If again, I'll just say the sales angle, you could copy and paste that. I could copy and paste your LinkedIn profile in Deb as well too.
Right.
And I could say, hey, I'm interviewing with this person, again, like what are some, things I could potentially pull out and highlight. I'm interviewing from, again, you would tell it, you are a recruiter at this company. here is the products that you sell. Here's what you do. I'm interviewing with the VP of sales. If I make it further, what are some of the typical questions that I might get asked,
Right.
as a part of this? Just
well,
amazing
yeah, so then
opportunity.
you're prepared, because that is, of course, the biggest thing is people are like, what are they going to ask me? What are they going to ask me? And, and so if you already know, okay, here's their product line, you prompt them, before they even say, their question, you could say, hey, I know that you sell this and this and this. Here's something that I thought about regarding it. Because it used to be that, we get annual reports, we'd read the newspapers, we do all this hard stuff on our own. And then you'd go into that interview somewhat prepared and say, I know that last year your sales fell, or, you developed this new product or something. And, and you're able to address that. Well, now you just do it with Chat GPT.
Yeah. Or Bing is another one that's internet enabled, Bard to some extent as well. So, there's other options. We've just found Chat GPT and, various APIs to be the better, but Bing also can do it too. Bing, Bing, just so people know, you might be like, Bing, Jake, seriously. But it has there's a chat. If you go, it's Microsoft Edge is what it's called. They use OpenAI's technology, so they technically use the same LLM that Chat GPT does. They're an early investor in them, and but it also searches. And another thing, what I like about Bing is Bing will cite sources. So if you feed it again, kind of data sets, it will cite sources for you as well too. So
I love that.
Have some places to reference as a part of it. But again, we're just kind of scratching the surface, and I think again, it's right now, if you think about just what I realized early, going back to one of the questions you asked me in the beginning, was when I started to understand what was possible, I kind of fired myself for my full-time CEO job for, about a week, and started to really just go down and start to really understand it. And I'm probably due to do it again since it's been 4 or 5 months.
Because it does change fairly quickly.
There's nothing more important. I have to be honest, like there's nothing that is happening right now that is more important if you are a knowledge employee and if you're an executive, because that's what it comes down to is like, again, Matt, spend all this time, and our brain, has been the repository of the information, right? Search was the first version of where this information now exists. But now it can mimic, pretty similarly. I think we like to think that we have proprietary ways that we would answer things, or proprietary, but there's best practices. There's things that exist. So I think if you're listening to this, don't be scared or nervous. Like it is what it is. It's not going anywhere. It's going to continue to proliferate. It's going to continue to get better. You'll have voice enabled. There's 11 labs that I can create voice samples of your voice. If I feed 20 different ones,
I might be out of a podcasting job because, I
or
could
you just don't have to show up. You can still have the podcast. And,
I could just have the computer do it for me.
That's right. There's influencers right now on Instagram that are 100% AI, making $1 million plus a year. And if you're in B2B, if you're in business right now, you cannot think of this like, well, that's social media or that's whatever. Like, my friends, like it's like the internet, it's like 1997 or 6. And people are like, oh yeah, the internet. Yeah, sure. We'll need that. But of course I need my emails printed out. Like this. I
still need my Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The Dewey Decimal System, right? Like, I think for a lot of you, like, I really hope you take away, like, now is the time. Like, you cannot ignore this. Like, this is not I'll play around. Like, if you're going to retire in the next couple of years, sure, then go for it. But if you're not planning to retire in the next 2 years, your job will be impacted by this, because it's getting better and better and better. And it's not scary, because if you know how to utilize the tools, you're fine. Like, it's great. You're going to be able to do so much more and higher quality work. Like the amount of quality work that this enables, again, to your point, that it gets you started. So I'm not spending, X hours trying to get started, another X hours doing this. Instead, I can spend all that time doing the customization work. And that's the real value add, not like, how do I trying to build some Excel template from scratch. It's already been built 500 times.
Well, and that's how you keep it from taking your job. You're using it as a tool so that you can do your job better. And I think that's the thing that people need to remember. Will it get rid of some stuff? Sure. But that has happened since the beginning of time. There is that thing called the Industrial Revolution, and Henry Ford made a lot of changes, and so things happen, and it's how we adapt to them. We're not talking Terminator. The things things are not going to be taken, man. Maybe, I hope not. But it really is something that is, when we use it the right way, it makes us better.
Yeah. I really feel like, again, now's the time. So if you're listening to this on a Monday, think about your schedule and see if you can, carve out some time.
Right.
Because again, and I think the other thing is that, look, you're probably not going to write very good prompts early on. We'll send some links over to help you, like how to do
my prompts are horrible. Write a blog post about
yeah, the more detail, it's classic, right? It's like the more detail you put in, the better the answers are, right? Shocking, right? Like that's how it, that's a part of it. So just really think about that it's just like any new skill. It's the first time you opened an Excel doc, the first time you opened a PowerPoint, the first time you did something else new, the Salesforce or whatever. Like, it's a skill that you can improve over time and continue to get better and better and better at.
Right. Well, and as I said, it is like having a conversation. And so I wouldn't tell somebody, hey, write a blog post. That the last one I did was I said, write a blog post about humor and cancer. Now, it actually did a pretty good job with that. And I was able to go back through and tweak it quite a bit. But I should have given it much more detail. And if I were talking to a person and giving it to them as an assignment or a project or something like that, it's the same thing. You're going to give them as much detail as possible. Otherwise, who knows what the heck you're going to get back? They might get lucky. It might be something totally different.
Sure, it's not going to be bad. Usually, it's not like terrible. But yeah, just think about that.
It might be better. I mean, I recently had a website designed and they came back with something totally different. And my first thought was, well, but that's not what I asked him to do. And then I went, oh, but this is much better.
Yeah, that's how I think about it too. Is like, even if you've done something before, that ability to get a different, again, perspective on it. And I know for a lot of people, it might, I don't know, be nerve-wracking or something to say, well, I'm getting perspective on it. Like, it's a bot. Like, well, yeah, but if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, if it works, and again, just it's just same way as like, search, right? If we probably just don't remember how bad search was early on. You'd have to do these Boolean searches, and
I hated those. Yes, if and ands and thens.
That's right. That's right. And that's where technology's advanced to where it's getting better faster. But I would just again encourage all of you to kind of stick with it. And the next, I'll tell you kind of the next things to think about. And you can tell ChatGPT to do this right now, but there's the next set of tools coming out, or there's different you can call them auto GPT or other things, where what we'll do is we'll tell them what we want to achieve. I want to achieve this outcome. I need to build a marketing plan for my company. This is what we do, etc. And it will start to just prompt you, and it will start to pull the information out of you.
It's that conversation.
And it will say, okay, well, tell me more, Jake. Like, do you sell to this person or that? Okay, well, tell, and it's just like a consultative, bot. And that is where we're headed next. So that way you don't have to be as good at like knowing the prompt, because then the AI will be like, don't worry. Okay. I think I get what you're trying to accomplish, think about, think about some of like those applications.
Right. And it's sophisticated. I mean, that's the thing, we've been having trouble with our internet. And so I was using our cable provider or our internet provider's AI to try and it was just, and then it got to need to talk to a real person. Please let me talk to a real person. And of course it wasn't wanting me to, and it kept saying, please answer these questions. I just want to talk to a real person. And, we've all seen the joke where, the kid is screaming, or the grandma is screaming into the phone, person.
Trust I do that.
But it's the quality of, those are simple and basic, but they're getting much more sophisticated also, because our internet had gone out. It came back and it said, hey, is everything okay? And I responded, yes. And it said, Great. We're so happy to hear that. I mean, it started having it more as a conversation as opposed to thank you so much for your service.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that we'll get there, right? Like, I think a lot of this, as I think about, what will end up being the, like, where we end up is, a lot of the mundane, like, think about basic email interaction.
Right.
Calendaring, right, is the most classic, right? Calendaring is the, the easiest one, I think, to like try to, tackle. And people have tried to tackle it, you know what I mean? Like, a lot. But think about your basic email interaction. I send you an email, right? Deb, you're a good example, right? To book on the, book for the podcast, etc. AI kind of already knows what's up. Like, you can imagine a world where it's like, is this somebody that you want to meet with? You're like, yep. And it just goes to the calendar link, looks at your calendar, books, and you never even see the email. Right. You think about, you're a salesperson. You send a note. It says, hey, this is interesting. Hey, Jake, I'd be interested in, learning a little more. Do I need a human to respond to that?
Not at the start.
I don't know. Maybe not to like that. Hey, not interested. Hey, whatever. Jake, I want to learn a little bit more about this feature or this. Hey, Jake, tell me a little bit more about how you guys work with ABC. Imagine a world, like, there will be a world very soon where email will just start responding. It'll just start responding for us. And
because it will know what our pattern is to respond.
Correct.
And it will just do it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. There's, we get probably 2 a day pitches to be on the podcast, from PR firms, publicity firms, places like that. And I have a standard, thank you so much, yada, 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 booking for the fall. You'll hear from us then. And, it takes me 30 seconds to do that. But 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there actually starts adding up. And if it can just go, okay, it's back to the old Boolean thing, right? If, then, and it's just going to send out the response. I'm going, ooh, that's pretty cool, and then it'll file it, and, the stuff will start popping back up. So I can see where that would just be fantastic.
Yeah, like, it's interesting. So there's just, again, the back and forth again. So I get, salespeople picture. It's like, well, that's not, it's not, people want human to human. And it's like, do you really want
there's a lot that we don't have.
There are certain things I do want human to human. There are other things I'm like, I'm good. I don't really need. I'd rather, it's like, if these 2 bots can just work out a time to meet,
right?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, and I want to get back to the fact that you use it a lot for sales. And we were joking. I was joking at the start that people go, ooh, sales. And a big part of that is because, if you ask them why, they will say, because I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do when they reject it. All of these various things. Well, if they've worked through all of this using ChatGPT or Bing or whatever, then it's simplified that process for them. That they, if somebody says, well, we're not interested in that right now, many people freak out. No, you've already role played with ChatGPT. Okay, here's what your response should be.
Exactly. So imagine, again, if you're a person, and again, you're like, I don't know where to start. Hey, what are the questions I should ask?
Right.
In this scenario. And again, just continue to get more specific. I think that's usually the biggest friction point, is we're so quick to hit the enter button because it's watch the, like you said, the little bubbles.
It does. It types. It's cute.
But just wait, and again, and we'll include some links for the podcast, to where you can see what some of these, we call them mega prompts look like, where I can program this huge prompt that's persona and everything. And at the bottom, I say, insert this job title for the persona. And, I could say insert this job title for this scenario or whatever it is. So again, it takes time. This is not from, I'm not speaking from where I was, when I finished having a pizza and a beer with my friend. This is from a lot of time spent in really thinking through the applications for sales. And again, there's customer onboarding, hey, maybe again, you're launching a new business. What's a good onboarding process for a new customer. Like
Right.
just continue to think about the different things that you could do. Hey, I'm interested in
Mm-hmm.
creating a really differentiated experience
Mm-hmm.
using video for my customers in the
Right.
follow-up process. Help me to write a 25-second script.
Right.
Like, just imagine all those use cases where you would start from scratch, you'd have an idea, and now in 6 seconds, you can get an answer that's like pretty good.
Right.
So,
and you were sitting there staring at the white piece of, paper, or, the white screen for days, weeks, going,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I had it do, write a pitch letter. I said, I need an email to send to HR professional groups to pitch me as a speaker about X. And it was incredible what it came back with. And then, of course, I told it, now, what organizations like that exist? Now, again, I could go off, I could Google, I could do, but it went boogity, boogity, boogity. And now it didn't give me contact information, but I still wanted to go to their websites to kind of see, okay, do they do annual meetings? Are they weekly? Are they virtual? All of those. So I still liked kind of doing that research on my own, but it got me started. And it got me off of that white page of, I just don't even know what to say.
Yep. There you go. That's it. I mean, it's pretty wild. Like, it's so interesting. I'll tell you all, I'm in the process of writing a book, for example, and I've had to redo my outline a few times as I've done it. And I can literally feed it. I feed it the chapter and I say, rewrite the table of contents for this.
So feed it, you cut and paste it into the thing, right?
And I just said, hey, write the outline that I should include in my table of contents for this.
I love it. Yeah. Or, here's the chapter. What's the summary?
How long that would have just think about that. Again, like that one application, there are so many different. What did my wife and I use it for the other day? Oh, we're going to Santa Barbara for 3 days or 4 days.
Oh yeah, people are doing trip itineraries.
Oh my God, it's so good. Hey, actually, you know what? We actually like wine more. Can you add in a day that's totally focused on wine? Like, we like whatever. It's so good. I went to Costa Rica. I spent a couple weeks there at the beginning of the summer, and hey, here's where I'm staying. What are some adventurous things I could do? Okay, what are the top beaches I should look at?
Right.
And great, gave me like 2 or 3 ideas I ended up using. And so again, it's just those conversation starters. It's like having an expert at almost anything you can imagine at the tip of your fingertips. So that's the way to again, I would think about it if I was
right. Well, and we've had those, like you said, we've had those. We've had Google, we've had TripAdvisor, we've had all of those various things. And of course, what this is doing is it's consolidating all of it. And I love that because it's so much quicker. We still have to make those decisions. We might go, no, the nude beach was not what I wanted to do. But yeah, and it's funny because it was an article that I was reading that was talking about, itineraries. And they said, that the issue was that it was a little bit out of date. And so, you still needed to check to make sure, okay, what are the hours, things like, but it wasn't that far out of date. And so it wasn't a huge deal. And certainly you weren't starting from scratch. You had this information there already.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And that's it. And again, I think that's what I see happen is that people will use it once, right? And they're like, well,
it didn't work.
It wasn't. Or, it's like, well, that's not quite it, etc. It's like, come on. Like, how close was it? Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I've seen, again, like that goes back to the realization that I had in that first meeting where we want to think that all of our knowledge is proprietary, but we all know that every day we choose products on Amazon that are not exactly what we want. They're 80% of what we want, but they get there tomorrow. And we as a society value speed. And so if I can get an answer in 6 seconds, that's about 80% correct. Or I could spend an hour and a half. Most of us, depending on 95% of situations, we're going to take the 6-second answer.
Right.
So that's the whole point here is like, anytime could it do this or hallucinate or all this stuff? It's like, sure. Is it 100, but you're missing the point.
Right.
Like now you're missing the point of what is possible
Mhm.
with this, and again, how it can kind of
Mhm.
impact your, your day to day as
Right.
part of that.
Right. And again, if you didn't get the answer that you were looking for, did you ask the right question?
Mhm.
And
Did you give it the right command?
yeah,
Did
yeah.
you
Or
give it
did you
enough
need to drill down
detail?
further? Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that's another thing too, is again, keep in mind what I said before. Each thread is its own brain. So
Mhm.
make sure too, don't confuse it. Meaning
Mhm.
like it's like this. I can't remember the analogy. It's like the smartest child on like the planet, because it can
Mhm.
get confused if you're like asking it about this type of thing and then you switch to this thing,
Mhm.
etc. So it's much better to start different threads for
Mhm.
different similar
Right.
things.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean they're not all tied together. But what I like is that you can have one thread, and I've talked to people who have done this, where it's an ongoing conversation. It might have been something that they started kind of noodling about weeks ago. And maybe it's product development might be something okay, well, what if we did this? Well, what if we did, and they just kept going, but it had all that knowledge in that thread already. So they weren't having to start over every single time they went back in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep, that's exactly right.
I love it. I love it. Well, what are some other ways that we can be thinking about, how can this really benefit a business?
Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, again, like the ideas are limitless, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's truly it. I think if you're a non-technical person,
Mm-hmm.
there's Code Interpreter, for
Mm-hmm.
example, and you can just tell it. You can say, I want to design a website. I
Mm-hmm.
want to do this. I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say any application or anything that you're thinking about, there's
Mm-hmm.
another one. There's, chat PDF. You can upload a PDF. It'll summarize it for you. You could query the PDF. Then you could upload a 500-page PDF,
Mm-hmm.
and chat PDF will let you, it'll let you just query it like it's,
Mm-hmm.
its own little chat GPT thingy. There's the Excel version, which is basically, for those of you who aren't Excel wizards, you
Mm-hmm.
can just use natural language and tell it what you want the formula to be. And it will create the VLOOKUP. It will create the table. It will create the formula for you. These all exist today. These aren't like in the future
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi. Like I think what it is like for a lot of people, if you're non-technical,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, I'm not necessarily technical, I don't have this, whatever, but I need it done.
Mm-hmm.
You actually start to have tools now that can do some of these
Right.
things. And so for, a lot of people that are, listening to this or,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it, just, again, kind of keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like keep that in mind that, when you're sitting there like, oh, I could never do this, or how would I do this? And that, but this in lies the issue, Deb, is I think what happens with us is we mature in our careers. Once you get 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you start
Mm-hmm.
to get stuck in your ways.
Right.
You start to think about
But
things
this is the
very,
way I've always done it.
and if I'm just being perfectly candid, that's
Mm-hmm.
the scariest part for
Right.
knowledge workers. I'm
Mm-hmm.
43, knowledge workers that are kind of my age and up,
Mm-hmm.
is that they will not go back to that beginner's
Mm-hmm.
mind and say, that's how I think. I'm like, I have to completely rethink the way that I went about like completing tasks
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Right.
That to me is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest gap or
Mm-hmm.
potential, like, again, scary part is for those people out there that aren't, that might listen to this and don't invest the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, they're sitting there doing these things manually. And you're like,
Right.
Frank, why did it take you however long?
Mm-hmm.
Like Susie's cranked out 14 of these,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and to
And you're
your
still writing your first
3.
draft. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, that I think is the big piece. Like this is not something that you can afford to
Mm-hmm.
ignore if you are a knowledge worker.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the beautiful part, like I think from an employment standpoint, it's like, look, if you're a blue collar worker, if you're
Mm-hmm.
a plumber, roofer,
Mm-hmm.
landscape, you're money.
Right.
You are fantastic. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be the first thing that, again, unlike the industrial revolution that, kind of was more a blue collar,
Mm-hmm.
replacer, and even other,
Mm-hmm.
revolutions that have happened. This will be the first one that really can impact, people that have 20 years
Mm-hmm.
of what we used to
Right.
consider proprietary experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I really quickly realized like this isn't something I need to be scared of. It's something that I have to learn how to embrace.
Right.
You know, something I have to learn how to apply to my role as CEO. I have to develop a product for, and again, that's something that we've developed here in the last 2 months is a product for sales organizations on how to standardize the use of chat GPT and tools like it in their organization to get 20-30% more productivity. So there's some very real, there's a lot of just like, again, like so again, when you ask the applications, it's like, where do you want to start? Just think of anything you have to do.
And there's new ones every day. That's the other thing.
And that's why you got to stay on top of it.
Right. Well, for the people that we've just totally freaked out, and where do they even start?
Yeah.
Because they're thinking, wait, open AI, what and chat G, what's the GPT stand for? I mean, all of that. Yeah. Where do they even start learning how to do this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So step one is just go to OpenAI, sign up for an account, chat GPT. And actually here, just so you aren't freaked out too, this is actually just a myth. I mean, look, according to them, when you enter in information, ChatGPT does not actually feed that information to like the hive mind. There used to be this thought that like, if I enter in information, ChatGPT, that's not how it works. It doesn't learn that way.
Right.
So like there's no benefit for it to do that necessarily. So anyway, just to kind of put it in perspective, like just to understand that. And I would just start to like, again, the best, it's just like almost any new technology or any new thing. Just think about something that's top of mind. Think about a scenario that's top of mind. Think about a project that you have to start. Think about something that's on your plate right now, from a professional standpoint. Just think about that. And that usually to me is like a really good place to start, because what that will then do is, and then you'll start to say, and then, I equate it to like, you did a hallucinogen every day, because it's like my mind just keeps opening up. I'm like, if you can do that, then you can do that. And if you could do that, and you could do that. But it takes time and it takes, a commitment to using it to where you really start to see the benefit of it. Because it's going to feel different. It's new, I don't remember what we did before search, which is kind of crazy, right? It's like, what did we do before search? Like, how did we find a website? We had to know about it direct or something like that. Like, what was that? Or web crawler was the first one I remember using. Like, so I think these types of tools require usage. You can listen to this podcast 5 times over. I'd rather you listen to it halfway through, pause, go test half of the
go
thing,
set up your account, and you can do I have a free account right now, because like I said, I'm still just at the dibble dabble stage. And the paid accounts are not that expensive, folks. This is not $1,000 a month. This is very, and especially when you figure out what your time is worth and how much of that you're saving. I mean, that's the whole thing. And so then it makes it worth it for you to do this.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Just think again, the more you invest now, you are going to save yourself years or thousands of hours in the future.
Right.
Like it's really, really, really remarkable. Like I said, this book use case, the outline that it's writing, just to put it in perspective, is so much better than what I would have written. Like it's so much more interesting.
Which, it's kind of, that's a good and a bad. You're like, oh, wait, it wrote something better than what I could do. And then you do, but then I'm done with it. Now I don't have to be worrying about it.
This is what it is. And again, this is what it is. You can choose to embrace it. You can choose to say, well, not me. I do this thing. And again, like I said before, I cannot stress enough, like as someone with 20 years of experience that some people might consider an expert in sales, etc. I am just as nervous about it replacing me, even though I've ran thousands of sales meetings and worked with all these different organizations. I am just as hungry. And again, but I'm not nervous. I've embraced it. And that's obviously a common theme, hopefully from hopefully from today.
Right. Yeah. And it will be scary to start with. And the media is, of course, having lots of fun stories about it.
Yes.
And we've got, and I'm in in Georgia, two huge industries that affect Georgia that are on strike at the moment. Partially based on the fact that, AI is, could be writing scripts, could be doing all of these things.
I mean,
it's there. So now it's not going to go away. I mean, you can't go to your boss and say, you promise me that you're never going to use this to do my job. They're not going to do that, or they shouldn't.
No.
And so you just have to be realistic about it, and instead go to them and say, let me know, or let me figure out how I can do this to make my job better. And that's the way to do it.
That's it. Again, and so just get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and again, Google around. Just think about, you've got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about a problem. You're like, there is no way it could do
Mm-hmm.
this. Instead,
and it does, and you're like,
and just Google, and just
mm-hmm.
again, there might be a new,
Mm-hmm.
like, again, like this stuff is evolving again, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's art. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
have heard of some of like the art use cases
Right.
where it can create art from
Mm-hmm.
your ideas, and
Mm-hmm.
you see these pictures of sharks, getting ready to bite
Mm-hmm.
a dog on a surfboard that look
Mm-hmm.
very realistic. And
Right.
there's just really so many applications
Mm-hmm.
here. But I think for most, people listening, the things that we've covered are the most important ones.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I had so Canva has incorporated it where you can have it create images.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. I told it, create an image of a man sitting at his desk with his his face in his hand because he's perplexed. And and I looked at it and I looked at it. And finally dawned on me, it had his hands going in his eye.
Yeah,
it was the creepiest picture in the world. It was like, well, this is entertaining, but no, can't use that.
That's a common one. That's a common.
Yeah. And so, will it fix that? Yes. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it was just, it was cool that it could even do that part. And so, but yeah, it will change how we do work. And so the way to do it is to figure out, okay, how do we work with it as opposed to against it? Exactly. And, I mentioned at the start that you have several programs, all sorts of things. So tell us more about, the services that you provide, not just for this, but all of the services that you provide.
Yeah, I mean, again, we do a mix of revenue, call it, operationalization. Usually it's organizations that are, trying to scale their business, and they're like, Jake, we need to build in processes that'll scale. And, we think about those as there's process problems, and then there's technology that can help to solve those problems. And so our team is both a mix of, call it, enablement professionals on like the content and messaging and playbook side, but also we have, technical resources that are certified in a lot of, the most popular tools that are out there. So, for me, it was, we got to have an AI offering for these sales orgs. It's like, again, we did their poll, and it's, you see 70% of them are using it. And then we did a poll. I want to say, did I do that Monday? It might've been last week. And 5% of the companies had 5% of people said they'd had a training on how to use it.
Oh,
so you got 70%
using it, and only 5% trained.
Have ever done. So everyone is stumbling through it, just like many of you. So that's where you're starting. So that's a good thing for you to kind of recognize. So, we developed this offering where, again, it's like, how do I use Chat GPT for my marketing and sales org? So we've kind of delineated, hey, here are the 9 areas that are most important, where it's going to have the biggest impact. So we've really just distilled down a lot of the learning, and we do a mix of like workshops, for people who want to get to speed, and also more custom things if people want like a more specific application. So again, anybody having, call it, revenue challenges around operationalizing, scaling, technology stack, that's our jam.
I love it. And you've got great information on your website. I spent time, on it today. And like I said, I watched some videos, and it distilled it down because, this is my brain is still a little fuzzy on a lot of this. But when I watched some of your videos, that was where, like I said, I went, oh, you're having a conversation with it. And so, yeah, you've got great resources. And so again, it's scaled.com, and that's SKALED.com.
Correct. Yeah. And you can find out a lot there. And like I said, we'll put a specific link for some of the more AI prompt, conversations that we
Perfect. Yep. We'll have that in the show notes. Jake, like we said, we need to make this an annual thing. So it's kind of like, ooh, what are we going to talk about next year? I mean, what could,
who knows?
I
Who
know.
knows? Like next will be the AI, instead of role playing with the chat bot, it's going to be a voice or a video or something like that.
Yep. And then the next year it will be, the little creature sitting on our desk having the conversation with us.
Now people are going to start to be like,
I know. But to me, that would be fun. I mean, I'm like one of those people who like sci-fi and all that good stuff. So, I think that would be fascinating. But again, it takes the person to manage all of it. And I think that's the thing for people to recognize. Jake, this really has been fun. And we do have to do this annually because I think we have so much fun on these discussions and you have such great information. But, until next year, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I've iterated a lot of this, around it's time to, play with it. It's time to get in there and like use it, not just, become proficient. These tools are going to continue to evolve. And so my final tidbit here, I teased at this earlier, is that all of us, people with multiple years of experience, have to kind of go back and remember how to have that beginner mind. That as this technology evolves, there's a current and it's coming, and we have to open our minds up to it. We've got to create the space for us to be frustrated and not remember how to do something and not be as proficient. Many times we become so proficient at things, we forget what it was like to be not proficient. And so we have to, any of you listening, give yourself that, permission here. Give yourself the permission to have a beginner mind, approach this and build in consistent learning for yourself over the next few years to continue to, get better and better at this.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I can't wait until we chat next time because it's going to be amazing as to in a year what will have happened. So I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with Jake Dunlap of Skaled Consulting. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.